Hello, Samuel. Thank you for your time today. As someone who is heading business for NaBFID, would you elaborate a little bit in terms of what are the key paramount objectives of NaBFID?
Thank you, Sudhir. Happy to be here. The objectives of NaBFID are very clearly mentioned in the Act of Parliament under which we have been set up. Actually, the government came up with this legislation in view of a felt need, a gap in the long-term infrastructure, non-recourse project financing within the country, and that is what we have been set up for. Apart from financing, we are also supposed to take care of the ecosystem. Financing is the easiest part, I'll say, but in order to act as promoting the ecosystem and also act as a facilitator, I think our role is really cut out as to what we will do. For instance, the Act of Parliament clearly mentions that we will have to develop the bond market, because globally infrastructure financing happens mostly through the bond market, long-term bond market, where the risks are spread away from the commercial banking system also, whereas in our country that is yet to happen. So we have our role very clearly cut out in the Act of Parliament itself, and we hope we'll play that role quite well.
Good, thank you. I'm sure the nation and the population is going to really benefit from this act and what NaBFID is going to do in the coming days. I'm sure that in today's world, for us to really ensure that the business objectives are met, you're going to rely a lot on technology. And would you want to elaborate a little bit in terms of how you think, as someone who really is heading the business aspect of it, technology is going to come and support you?
Technology is going to be a very, very important part of our total business, the way we deal with infrastructure financing in this country. For instance, if you look at long-term corporate financing, that is financing to the manufacturing sector, we have a lot of track record, we have industry data, so on and so forth. Whereas here in infrastructure, usually a concession agreement is won by a special purpose vehicle, which does not have any track record, so to speak. And these are usually owned by platforms or private equity funds, which also we cannot rely for the 20-year concession or 30-year concession. So we will have to assess any proposal on the strength of the project per se, on the strength of the cash flows that the concession agreement will generate. So the project assessment basically depends on building a model, a financial modeling, which depends on many assumptions, and these assumptions rely on data, actual data. So these financial models will be as good as the data we rely upon. So unless we get this act correctly, our assessments could go wrong, because we are not taking a call for 5 years or 7 years. These are 20 plus years exposure that we take. So it's very important that we get the data part right. In fact, when we looked at our core banking solution, core banking is probably the easiest part. If we confine it only to core banking, but if you combine it with the loan management system, a loan origination system, and start capturing data, not only our own data, but also data available in the ecosystem, then I think we will build a very robust database, which will not only help us, of course it will help our assessment, but it will help the industry also. For instance, today if you look at the retail credit boom in the country, which has happened in the last 1 decade or 2 decades, that is piggybacking on the quality of data or the quantum of data that is available. All our credit histories, all of us have a number put to our credit scores, so on and so forth. So if we are able to get this data pertaining to infrastructure, for example, if we all know by some thumb rules and by some anecdotal data is available that this is the irradiation data in the country. But if some investor were to specifically ask, what will be the PLF for a 3 megawatt wind turbine in Gadag district of Karnataka, do we have the data? As of now, we don't have. We have very anecdotal data, but not the exact data. If we are able to capture this data and put it in the public domain, these investors are very well-informed, sophisticated investors. We may not need to put a score, but they will do their own analysis, and these projects will attract international capital. So that is what I meant in my earlier response also, that our role is just not financing, but also facilitating investment into the sector. So I hope with this technology advancement, we will be able to get that piece right.
Absolutely. So it's very, very true and evident that it's not the traditional model which is going to help, because you need to delve a lot into the data. And some data is very uncommon, like the example you mentioned about megawatt. Something probably, we haven't captured. We don't have it in a very in a systemic or a methodical fashion. So that leads to me to the next question in terms of, while I would like to hear from you in terms of what's been your experience with Infosys. And next is about what is your expectation in terms of how Infosys should scale up, particularly given the context of non-traditional related data which you're going to deal with, and how we can actually make the data available to you in a fashion where you make very decisive, very conscious, useful decisions out of that data in terms of investing and supporting the growth of the nation.
Well, Infosys is not new to me, and not new to many of the seasoned bankers in this country. Of course, Infosys came through a process which we had run, and both on the technical and the commercial part, Infosys was clearly the winning bidder for implementing this project, and we are very happy that we will be dealing with a known animal that way. As regards how Infosys should evolve, I think maybe Finacle as a product evolved as an accounting software, as a balance sheet generating tool, so to say. But already it has evolved much beyond that. So if we can have an integrated offering, that what I mean is a loan origination system, a loan management system, of course it need not be in the core banking itself. But if the core banking can support all these integrated solutions along with the accounting part of it. For instance, in fact, today in the session also the question about expected credit loss came about. See, if you look at the developed world, most of them have moved away from this prescriptive regulatory framework, where as of now in India, we are following, at least the banks are following, a very prescriptive regulatory framework. But if we have a predictive model based on data, we can very clearly move to expected credit loss. And in the infrastructure segment, maybe that expected credit loss model provisioning may help us more in conserving our capital more than this prescriptive model at which we are presently following. So I think we will have to evolve with the times, and if Infosys could help us help the banks evolve with the times, that will be the best contribution to the banking sector.
Good, real Samuel. Thank you for your answer, and that has got a lot of inputs for us to really think about and come out with a very comprehensive solution to address these requirements. So thank you for your time today, Samuel.
Thank you, Sudhir. I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.